We move on now to the nitro-burning top fuel dragsters. This is Pat Dakin, the points leader out of Dayton, Ohio, climbing those fat Goodyear slicks as he warms the tires during his burnout. His opponent from Columbus, Ohio, construction company owner Jim Head.
Head hasn't been that strong at all this year on the IHRA trail. Dakin, on the other hand, has, well, he's leading the points. What more can I say? He's been very dominant.
The two cars get away cleanly. Looks like a little bit of a traction problem in the left lane for Head, and Dakin drives around. Good race.
Dakin will move into the next round.
Our next matchup in top fuel will be the pride of Boynton Beach, Florida, Paul Smith, the number 8 qualifier, up against one of the fastest top fuel drivers in the world, Richard Holcomb.
Paul Smith leads very early on Holcomb, and Holcomb is going to have his hands full driving around. He does.
Looks like he hurt the race car a little bit.
There is some smoke there, would indicate that he may have hurt something on that run. A 5.52, a good run. Holcomb, there we see the smoke right there. Holcomb did hurt that engine right before he went into the trap and nearly lost that race to Paul Smith.
So, as you see the flames coming from the cockpit now, it looks like there's going to be work for Richard Holcomb's crew. And our final matchup in top fuel will be Hank Endres, who comes in out of Pennsville, New Jersey as the number 2 qualifier. He will be up against his former car owner, John Carey from Dover, Delaware.
Well, John Carey qualified number 7. Hank Endres qualified number 2. So Endres has to be the odds-on favorite to take this round.
Endres now driving for Jim and Sue Bernstein out of Pennsville, New Jersey. Carey in the left lane, Endres in the right. Remember that left lane where we had that big jet burn down may be giving these cars some really awkward launches, but look at this. Endres in the right lane goes up, and John Carey will walk through to the semi.
Carey with a 5.51, 238. The Norwalk Raceway Park crew stayed up all night working that lane over. We'll see it right now as they come out, and you'll see instantly Carey will go up in smoke in what should be the good lane. The lane where the jet car burned to the ground last night is the better of the 2 lanes right now.
Our final run in top fuel will be a solo effort. Here's Gene Snow coming back after breaking his collarbone a couple of months ago in California. He gets a solo when his opponent Bob Murray fails to show.
There's a possibility, obviously, with 3 more races to go, that you can still drive around Pat Dakin for the World Championship. Is that still on your mind coming back from your crash?
I was looking at the numbers the other day. I think we're maybe less than 100 points apart, and I think it's going to be real close, and we can't afford to let him get ahead of us too much more.
I know you'll be charging. Good luck, guy.
Thanks very much.
Charging into the semifinals will be Gene Snow, although he will give up lane choice to John Carey in one matchup. Richard Holcomb will have lane choice over points leader Pat Dakin in the second. Plenty of action still to come from the Loctite Nation. On your feet, Sportsman fans, it's time for our regular look at your favorite class with Bret Kepner.
The Eliminator category is a member of the rod category of classes that we've talked about before. Heads up, no handicap sportsman racing on a common index or standard. This one, 9.90 seconds. Super Rod is by far the most diverse and most competitive of the 3 rod categories and always attracts the largest entries. Hence, Ford, Chevrolet, Chrysler, Rambler, just about anything runs competitively on side-by-side 9.90 second runs. But indeed, you'll find some of the greatest engineering advances in this category as well. With me is Joe Mosqueda, the man who campaigns a Buick Somerset Regal named the Natural Gasser. There's a reason for it, and a darn good one. The machine burns natural gas for fuel. And Joe, this particular machine is not only economical, it's actually an entirely different way to propel a car down a racetrack, don't you think?
That's correct. This car burns an invisible fuel, a fuel that you can't see. You can smell it, you can hear it, but you can't see it. We start out in the rear of the trunk. Replacing the fuel cell is a aluminum tank, fiberglass wrap, 3,000 pound pressure rating on it. We put 1,600 pounds of compressed natural gas in that cylinder. Once we're in the front of the engine compartment, we have 1,600 pounds of natural gas to this point right here. And these are water-heated, high-pressure regulators, which reduces 1,600 pounds of pressure to 130 pounds of pressure into these 2-stage low-pressure regulators. The gas is then further reduced, and when we reduce it, it tends to cool the gas, which is to our advantage. We now reduce the pressure to 3 ounces of pressure. That's the same thing that your furnace works on or your stove at home. When I work the throttle linkage from inside the car, the vacuum signal from the plenum chamber goes up to a drilled hole on these little mixers. These are the same thing as carburetors. And the vacuum pulls up on the gas air valve. The gas air valve then allows the natural gas at 3 ounces of pressure to flow into the motor where it's mixed with the air coming in to the mixer. And it then goes down into the engine, which is strictly a gasoline engine, except it's been jacked up a little bit on its compression to 14:1. Natural gas has a constant octane rating of 130 octane. It's very clean, non-polluting, and as a matter of fact, if you take the plugs out, you can't tell that they've been used.
The only thing this thing really produces is water vapor and a little carbon dioxide.
That's absolutely correct. After 300 passes last year, we tore the motor down. You could have used all the parts over but the bearings. The bearings just showed a normal amount of wear.
How much does it cost to fill up that tank of natural gas?
That's really the neat thing about it. Natural gas, 100 cubic feet of natural gas equals approximately 1 gallon of gasoline. And that's what this car would use going down the track. It costs 43 cents per pass.
Well, there are plenty of super rod racers that would love to have that kind of expense per run. This category not only offers engineering advances, it also has one of the most unique teams in the sport. At IHRA national events, you'll find one of the most interesting pair of racers you'll ever witness, led by this incredible 1955 Chevrolet. This is the original Godzilla 55 Chevy Bel Air that Nick IHRA out of the Cleveland area has been campaigning for literally 25 years. But in the last couple of seasons, he's brought in another aspect of the IHRA racing family team, his wife, Joanne. They are one of the very few husband and wife teams in motorsports in which both members can say they've won national championship events. Indeed, these two are some of the best drivers in the business. Nick, you've been driving the Godzilla 55 Chevrolet literally from coast to coast for now almost a quarter of a century. Why do you keep campaigning this car?
Well, it's a really unique vehicle. We have a lot of fun, meet a lot of nice people, and we generally just have a good time racing. Of course, we're out there to try and win money, just like everybody else, but Joanne loves it, I love it, and we're out there, you know, having a good time.
Well, it's interesting to note that like Joe Mesquite with the natural gasser, Joanne qualified with a perfect 990. In fact, hers was actually perfect to the 1,000th of a second. You have an ability to drive the Vega, Joanne, like no other woman in this particular category. Have you learned everything from Nick?
Oh, yeah, he taught me everything I know, everything. He was a good teacher, he really was. He was really patient with me. If I went out there and I did anything wrong, I mean, I'd come back and he would never, ever holler at me or anything, you know. It was really great.
I know that you were one of the original members of the 990 category when it was first created about 12 or 13 years ago. What do you like so much about the 990 category? Why haven't you tried to make Godzilla a little bit quicker for, say, quick rod?
Well, first of all, I love Pro Stock. I always loved Pro Stock, and I always wanted a Pro Stocker, but I just couldn't afford to have a Pro Stocker. So when they came out with this class on a Pro Tree 990, where I could afford to build something to go 990, that's when, man, I said, this is my chance. So I really thought hard about how to win and worked hard at it, and it paid off.
With everything from state-of-the-art technology to the family atmosphere of the IHRA racing team, the 990 Super Rod category in IHRA races seems to have just about everything you could ask in a drag racing class, including one other thing, entries. Tons of them at every IHRA event. This is always the largest category. As a matter of fact, here at the World Nationals, over 100 machines were trying to qualify for a 64-car field. As a matter of fact, it ended up with 64 qualifiers within 1/10 of a second spread. That's close drag racing, and that's what Super Rod is all about. Back to you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Bret. And where's Joe Mosquito's phone number? I want a car that runs on natural gas. None of our featured performance made the final. That matchup with Jerry Thomas out of Albertus, Pennsylvania, against Greg McLeod from Harrodsburg, Kentucky.
Well, we started with over 100 cars, qualified 64. Here's the final. The last two cars for the Super Rod Championship. Greg McLeod gets there first with a 985. That's no good. That's a breakout. You can't do that. Thomas wins it with a 991. Other Sportsman champions in top Sportsman, Phil Schaefer came in as a first alternate, but won the championship. In modified, Mick Lieberman 6-cylinder. Factory modified went to Rick Horde. Quick Rod, John Vineyard over Gary Mold, and as we just saw in Super Rod, Jerry Thomas over Greg McLeod. Hot Rod champion was Doug Wood. In Super Stock, Harold Charles was the champion, and in Stock Eliminator, it was Harry Doolittle from Canton, Michigan.
All right, pro categories next on tap. Semifinal action in nitro-burning funny cars and top fuel.